Late for their first mating ceremony, the Alpha King arrived with unexpected company. The wind whispered through the ancient stones, carrying with it a promise of destiny and danger. Tonight, the mating ceremony was to be held, a sacred rite that would bind fated pairs and declare the future of the kingdom. Every noble heart and loyal soul awaited the arrival of Kaelin, the Alpha King, whose very presence inspired both fear and devotion. Yet Kaelin was late. Inside the ceremonial hall, Eldra paced with controlled fury. Her gown of midnight blue shimmered with subtle threads of silver, catching the candlelight as she moved. She had been told that patience was a virtue, that kings had responsibilities that might delay them, but the truth pressed against her chest like a heavy stone. The night grew older, the torches flickered, and still there was no sign of him. "Where is he?" she murmured, her voice a blend of anger and longing. Her words barely carried across the vast hall, but they were meant for the shadows, for the moon, for the wind itself. The hall was lined with nobles in ceremonial attire. Some whispered, their voices like the rustle of dry leaves. Eyes shifted, judging, curious, expectant. Eldra's father, the ruling king of Valmora, sat upon his throne, his expression a mask of patience, though Eldra knew the lines of worry etched into his face. She could feel his tension, and it mirrored her own. A drum rolled in the distance, signaling the beginning of the rite. Eldra stopped pacing, her heart tightening. The mating ceremony was not just tradition, it was destiny, a binding of hearts, power, and magic. And Kaelin, the Alpha King of Valmora, was supposed to arrive first, to claim his place beside her, to stand as the living embodiment of the kingdom's future. The doors of the hall creaked, and a hush fell over the room. Every eye turned toward the entrance. Eldra's chest rose with hope, then fell with suspicion. Kaelin did not appear alone. A figure stepped into the hall, tall and commanding, cloaked in shadows and moonlight. And behind him another presence, a woman with eyes like storm clouds, her hair dark as midnight, her expression calm but unreadable. Eldra's heart skipped. Who was she? What right did she have to walk beside her destined mate? Kaelin's shoulders were broad, his posture unyielding, yet there was an edge to him tonight, a hint of something unspoken in the set of his jaw. When his gaze met Eldra's, it carried the weight of apology, pride, and unspoken urgency. He spoke, his voice deep and steady, echoing through the hall. "I apologize for my delay," he said, his eyes briefly flicking to the mysterious woman behind him. "Circumstances beyond the castle required my attention." Whispers rose among the nobles, some questioning, some scandalized. Eldra's fists clenched at her sides. She wanted to scream, to demand explanations, but she held her tongue. The ceremony had begun, and she could not let her anger undo the ritual. The mysterious woman stepped forward slightly, her presence serene yet commanding. Eldra studied her carefully. There was something about her that felt ancient, as if she had walked through shadows older than the mountains themselves. And yet there was no threat in her gaze, only an unspoken promise that secrets had traveled far and wide to reach this hall tonight. Kaelin approached Eldra, his steps measured and deliberate. Every noble in the room watched as he closed the distance between them. His eyes searched hers, as if seeking forgiveness in the silent language only fated mates could understand. "Eldra," he said, his voice softening as he finally stood before her, "I did not intend to worry you. Then why bring her?" Eldra interrupted, her tone sharp despite the effort to keep her voice steady. Her eyes darted to the mysterious woman. "Why is she here?" Kaelin's jaw tightened. "She is not here for me, not for us. She carries news and danger." "I had no choice." His gaze flickered to the woman, who inclined her head once solemnly. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Eldra's anger did not fade, but beneath it a deeper current stirred, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and something she could not yet name. She wanted to trust Kaelin, wanted to believe in the bond that destiny had promised. And yet doubt gnawed at her, whispering that this night would change everything, for better or for worse. The ceremony began, the chants of the nobles filling the hall like a living thing. Candles cast dancing shadows against the stone walls, and Eldra felt the magic in the air, the ancient ritual calling to her very soul. Kalen took her hand, and she felt the heat of his palm, the strength of his grip. There was comfort in it, and yet the presence of the other woman was a shadow that could not be ignored. Suddenly, the torches flickered violently, and a cold wind swept through the hall. Papers rustled, the chants faltered, and Eldra felt a shiver run down her spine. She glanced toward the entrance, and the mysterious woman's eyes glowed faintly, a storm in her gaze. Something was wrong. "Kalen," Eldra whispered, clutching his arm. "What is happening?" He looked around, his face grave. "I do not know, but stay close. Whatever comes, we face it together." The shadows in the hall seemed to deepen, stretching unnaturally, curling at the edges as if alive. The nobles murmured, uneasy, and Eldra could feel her pulse quicken. The ritual was meant to bind hearts and declare fates, yet now it felt as if the very forces of the kingdom were testing them, probing their strengths and weaknesses. The mysterious woman stepped forward, her voice soft but commanding. "This is no ordinary night," she said. "Something stirs in the shadows, something that has waited for centuries. The ceremony is not just for binding, it is also for confronting what you cannot yet see." Eldra's heart pounded. She looked at Kalen, whose expression was unreadable, but whose eyes betrayed a storm of worry. She wanted to ask him why he had not told her, why he had kept secrets that now threatened them both. But the words caught in her throat, replaced by the unspoken tension that hummed in the air. The wind grew colder, and Eldra wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite the warmth of the hall. The candles flickered, casting the room in half-light, and she felt the weight of destiny pressing down, heavy as stone. Kalen tightened his hold on her hand, and in that moment Eldra felt a spark of reassurance. Despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite the presence of the mysterious woman who carried secrets and danger alike, Kalen was here. And for now, that was enough. The mysterious woman raised her hand, and the shadows in the hall shifted, forming shapes that danced at the edges of vision. Eldra's breath caught, a mixture of awe and dread. She had known the ceremony would be powerful, but she had not expected this. The air itself seemed alive, whispering warnings and promises in a language older than memory. Kalen's voice broke the spell, calm and commanding. "Focus. The ceremony continues. We will face what comes together." Eldra nodded, though her heart still raced. She could feel the tension between them, not just the bond of fate, but the friction of unspoken fears and longing. The night was far from over, and she knew that when it ended, nothing would be the same. As the chants grew louder, the candles steadied, and the shadows receded slightly, Eldra's gaze flicked to the mysterious woman once more. There was knowledge in her eyes, a warning that Eldra did not yet understand. And then, as suddenly as the wind had risen, the room fell silent. A whisper echoed through the hall, low and barely audible. "The Alpha's secret will be revealed tonight." Eldra felt a chill run down her spine. Kalen's hand tightened around hers, and she realized that this ceremony, meant to bind them in destiny, had become a test of courage, trust, and love. And in that moment, she understood. The night was only beginning. The wind had died down, leaving the ceremonial hall quiet except for the low whispers of nobles and the soft drip of water from the ancient stone walls. Eldra's mind was racing, still tangled in the events of the night. Kalen's late arrival, the mysterious woman, and the whispered warning, it all felt like the first note of a storm about to break. After the ceremony, the hall emptied slowly, leaving only Eldra, Kalen, and the woman who had come unbidden into their lives. Eldra's hands clenched the folds of her gown. She felt anger, confusion, and something deeper, a stirring in her chest she did not yet understand. "You did not tell me," Eldra said, her voice trembling just enough to betray her controlled anger. "Why did you bring her here, Kaelin? What is she doing in our hall during our ceremony?" Kaelin's eyes were calm, but the set of his jaw betrayed worry. "I wanted to protect you," he said, his voice low. "This woman, she carries knowledge that none of us can ignore. Something has awakened in the shadows tonight, and it threatens more than just the kingdom." Eldra shook her head. "Threatens the kingdom, or threatens us. You could have told me the truth. You could have trusted me." Kaelin took a step closer, closing the distance between them. "I could not. Some things, some truths are dangerous to speak aloud until the time is right. But I swear, Eldra, you are the most important part of my life. You are my bond, my mate. Nothing will change that." Eldra's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel the warmth of their connection, the bond that destiny promised. And yet the presence of the mysterious woman, her calm and unreadable gaze, kept doubt twisting inside her. The woman who had remained silent until now spoke. Her voice was soft but carried weight. "I am Leora. I do not come as an enemy nor as a friend. I come with warnings. There is a force in the shadows, something bound to your bloodline, Kaelin. It has slept for centuries, waiting for the night of the first mating ceremony." Eldra's eyes widened. "A force? What kind of force? Why would it care about us?" Leora's eyes met Eldra's, and for a moment the young princess felt as if the woman could see into her very soul. "Some forces awaken when destiny is challenged," Leora said. "They feed on fear, doubt, and anger. They grow stronger when hearts are divided." Kaelin's hand tightened around Eldra's. "That is why I brought her," he said. "She knows the magic, the ways to protect the kingdom, and tonight we may need that protection." Eldra's anger flickered, replaced by unease. She had always trusted Kaelin, believed in the strength of their bond. But tonight, the shadows seemed to whisper warnings she could not ignore. And if the prophecy was true, if a hidden danger truly had awakened, then everything she knew about her life, her kingdom, and her future was in question. "I will not be a pawn," Eldra said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. "I will not stand by while others decide my fate." Kaelin looked at her, pride and longing in his eyes. "You will not," he said softly. "You are stronger than you know, and tonight you will prove it." The wind rose suddenly, rustling the torches in the hall and sending shadows dancing along the walls. Leora's eyes darkened. "We do not have much time. The force I spoke of is already stirring. If we wait, it will grow too strong to control." Eldra felt a shiver run through her. She wanted to run, to hide, to deny the truth of what was coming. But the fire inside her, the courage she had always carried, would not let her. She straightened her back and nodded. "Then we face it," she said. "Together." Kaelin's lips curved in a faint smile, and for a moment the tension between them softened. He stepped closer, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Together," he repeated, and Eldra felt the warmth of his presence steady her fear. Leora turned toward them. "We must leave the castle. The shadows have already begun to gather near the cliffs. There is a temple beyond the forest where the magic is strongest. That is where we must confront what has awakened." Eldra swallowed hard. The forest beyond the castle had always seemed wild, mysterious, and dangerous. But tonight it called to her, its darkness hiding secrets and tests she could not yet imagine. She looked at Kaelin, seeing the same mixture of determination and worry mirrored in his eyes. "Lead the way," Eldra said, her voice firm. "I will not let fear guide me." The three of them left the hall, stepping into the moonlit night. The wind tugged at their cloaks, and the cliffs rose like jagged teeth against the silver sky. Shadows moved unnaturally in the corners of their vision, as if unseen eyes were watching, waiting. As they walked toward the forest, Eldra's mind raced. She had always been taught to trust the Alpha King, to follow the path destiny had laid out. But now, with Leora at their side and a darkness stalking them, she realized that trust would be a choice she would have to make repeatedly. And with every step, the bond between her and Kaelin was tested. stretched tight by fear, doubt, and unspoken longing. The forest welcomed them with silence. Trees twisted high above, their branches weaving a canopy that blocked much of the moonlight. Eldra could hear the soft rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig underfoot, and the distant call of a night bird. But beneath the ordinary sounds of the forest there was something else, a subtle vibration, a pulse that seemed to echo the warnings Leora had given. Kaelin's hand brushed hers. "Stay close," he whispered. His voice was a lifeline, steady and grounding in the midst of the growing tension. Eldra nodded, feeling the electricity of their bond hum between them. They reached the temple by midnight. It was ancient, carved from black stone that gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Strange runes adorned the walls, glowing faintly as if alive. Eldra felt a shiver of awe and fear. This place was older than the kingdom itself, older than any story she had ever heard. Leora stepped forward, her hands raised as she began to chant softly. The air thickened with magic, and Eldra felt the shadows in the corners of the temple twitch as if listening. She glanced at Kaelin, who met her gaze and gave a slight nod. The unspoken message was clear. They faced this together, no matter what came. The shadows began to move. Shapes formed, dark, swirling, and shifting. Eldra felt the force of fear pressing against her chest, trying to push her back. But she drew a deep breath and let the warmth of Kaelin's hand steady her. "This is it," Kaelin said, his voice low but firm. "Stay with me, Eldra. We are stronger together." Eldra nodded, feeling the pulse of destiny in her veins. The shadows lunged, and the temple erupted in a surge of magical light. Eldra, Kaelin, and Leora stood their ground, facing the darkness with courage and determination. In that moment, Eldra realized something profound. Fear could not rule her, not if she held fast to her bond with Kaelin and her own inner strength. And as the shadows circled, whispering threats in voices she could not understand, she felt a spark of something new: power, courage, and an unbreakable connection that went beyond duty, beyond destiny, and into the very heart of love itself. The battle with the shadows had only just begun, and Eldra knew that the night would change them forever. Yet, even as fear and doubt swirled around them, she felt a quiet, burning certainty. She would not let this darkness separate them. They would face it together, and when the night ended, their bond would be stronger than ever. But as the first shadows lunged forward, Eldra caught a flicker of movement at the edge of the temple. Something was watching them, an unseen force, more dangerous than anything they had faced. Her heart tightened and she glanced at Kaelin. His eyes were filled with the same realization. The unknown force had come for them. And tonight, the forest would decide their fate. The forest seemed alive that night, its shadows shifting and twisting as if moved by a secret will. Eldra's heart pounded in her chest as she followed Kaelin and Leora deeper into the darkness. Every step seemed heavier than the last, as though the very earth tried to slow their progress. Kaelin's hand remained firm on hers, his presence a steadying force. Yet even his strength could not mask the tension in his shoulders. He was alert, every sense heightened, as if he expected the shadows themselves to rise from the soil. "Do you feel it?" Eldra whispered, glancing at Leora. The sorceress walked a few steps ahead, her eyes closed, hands moving in precise, silent motions that seemed to pull unseen threads from the air. "Yes," Leora said quietly, "something watches us, a force older than any magic in this kingdom. It has waited for centuries, and now it senses Kaelin's blood, the bond of your destiny, Eldra. It grows stronger with every heartbeat of doubt, every flicker of fear." Eldra tightened her grip on Kaelin's hand. "Then we cannot show it fear," she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. Inside, uncertainty twisted like a serpent in her chest. Could she really stand against an ancient force? Kaelin glanced at her, his expression softening for a brief moment. "We are stronger than it thinks," he said. "Together we will face it." His words warmed her, even as the shadows pressed closer, whispering threats in voices that were almost human, yet not. They reached a clearing where the moonlight pooled like silver water, and at its center stood the temple, a ruin of black stone, carved with runes that pulsed faintly in the night. Eldra could feel the power radiating from it, a cold, magnetic force that tugged at her very soul. "This is it," Leora said. "The temple holds the balance of power. If we falter here, the darkness will spread beyond the forest, beyond the kingdom. We cannot fail." Eldra swallowed hard. The weight of the moment pressed down on her chest. She wanted to turn back, to retreat to the safety of the castle, but she knew she could not. Not when Kaelin was by her side, not when destiny had called them here. The shadows began to gather, coalescing into shapes that twisted and writhed in the moonlight. Eldra gasped. They were not ordinary shadows. They were living, moving, as if the night itself had grown claws and teeth. Kaelin stepped forward, his voice strong and commanding. "Stand behind me, Eldra. Trust me." She obeyed, feeling a mixture of fear and anticipation. She had never been so aware of her own heartbeat, nor so acutely conscious of Kaelin's presence beside her. Their connection, their bond, pulsed like a living thing, intertwining with the magic in the temple and the forest around them. Leora raised her hands, chanting in a language Eldra did not know, and a soft glow began to radiate from the runes on the temple walls. The shadows hissed and recoiled, their shapes distorting as if in pain. Eldra felt a thrill of awe. This was real magic, ancient and alive. But the darkness did not flee. It circled them like a predator, waiting for a misstep, feeding on doubt and hesitation. Eldra's pulse quickened, her mind racing. She realized that Kaelin's strength alone would not be enough. They all had to be united, hearts and wills aligned, to hold the shadows at bay. "Kaelin," Eldra said, her voice trembling, I can feel something inside me. A power. It's like the temple is calling me, or the forest. I don't know what it is, but I think I can help." Kaelin's eyes widened, but he did not pull back. Instead, he nodded, his hand tightening around hers. "Then do it, Eldra. Trust yourself. Trust the bond between us. Whatever this is, it is part of you as much as it is part of the kingdom." Eldra took a deep breath, closing her eyes. She felt a warmth rise within her, spreading from her chest to her fingertips. It was a strange, thrilling sensation, as if she were drawing power from the very earth beneath her feet, from the moon above, from the bond she shared with Kaelin. The shadows shrieked and recoiled as she focused, forming a circle of light around them. The energy was raw, wild, but Eldra embraced it, letting it flow through her. She could feel the fear in the shadows, the hunger, and she pushed against it with everything she had. Kaelin and Leora worked in tandem with her. Kaelin's voice, commanding and steady, wove through the night, shaping the magic with his alpha power. Leora's hands moved in complex patterns, guiding the flow of energy and reinforcing Eldra's own burgeoning power. The shadows surged one final time, a wave of darkness that threatened to overwhelm them. Eldra felt herself faltering for a moment, doubt clawing at her mind. But Kaelin's hand was there, anchoring her, and she drew on the bond they shared, feeling it strengthen her resolve. With a roar that seemed to come from her very soul, Eldra unleashed the power she had felt within her. Light erupted from her hands, weaving with Kaelin's command and Leora's guidance, striking the shadows with a brilliance that made the night flare with color. The force of it knocked her to her knees, but the shadows scattered, screaming, twisting, until finally they dissolved into nothingness. The forest was silent again, the only sound the ragged breathing of the three who had faced the darkness. Eldra's knees shook as she rose to her feet, her body trembling from exhaustion and exhilaration. She had done it. They had done it. Kaelin pulled her close, holding her as if the world itself might vanish if he let go. "You were incredible," he said softly, his lips brushing her hair. "I never doubted you for a moment." Eldra's chest swelled with pride, but also with something deeper. Relief, yes, but also a warmth that had nothing to do with victory over the shadows. She looked up at him, seeing not just her alpha king, but the man who had stood beside her, trusted her, and shared his strength with her. You, you didn't doubt me either, she whispered. I never do, Kaelin said. Not with you, not ever. For a moment they stood there, bound together by more than destiny, by trust, by shared fear, by the knowledge that they had faced something ancient and survived. Eldra felt the tension in her body ease, replaced by a quiet thrill of understanding. This bond, this connection, was not just ritual or duty. It was real, powerful, and unbreakable. Leora stepped back, her expression calm, yet her eyes held a hint of pride. You both have done well, she said. But remember this, forces like these do not stay gone forever. They sleep, they wait, and they watch. Your bond is strong, but it will be tested again, and next time the challenge may be greater. Eldra nodded, understanding the warning. The night had changed them. It had tested their courage, their trust, and their bond. But she felt ready, stronger than ever, and more certain of her feelings for Kaelin. Kaelin lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. No matter what comes, he said, we face it together, always. Eldra felt her heart swell, and she nodded. Always, she echoed. The three of them left the temple, the forest now quiet under the moonlight. The shadows had gone, but the air still carried the memory of their presence, a reminder that darkness was never far away. Eldra felt the pull of the bond again, stronger than ever, connecting her to Kaelin in a way she had never imagined. As they neared the castle, Eldra glanced at the horizon. The first light of dawn was breaking, spilling gold across the jagged cliffs. The night had tested them, shown them their fears and their strengths. But it had also shown them something more, the depth of their connection, the power they shared, and the courage that lay hidden inside them both. Yet even as the sun rose, Eldra sensed that this victory was only the beginning. Somewhere in the shadows, in places unseen, forces stirred. The darkness they had faced tonight was ancient, patient, and cunning. It would not rest, and neither could they. She looked at Kaelin, who walked beside her, still alert, still strong, still the alpha she had always admired. And she knew without a doubt that their bond, tested by fear, strengthened by trust, and tempered in battle, would be the key to surviving whatever came next. But as they reached the castle gates, a sudden chill ran through Eldra's spine. A whisper, soft and almost imperceptible, seemed to echo from the trees behind them. This is only the beginning, the tide is coming. Eldra tightened her hand around Kaelin's, their fingers entwined. They had faced the shadows and survived. But the true challenge, the one that would test not just their strength but their hearts, was still ahead. And neither of them could know what lay waiting in the darkness beyond the forest, beyond the kingdom, and beyond the bond that fate had forged between them. The first rays of dawn spilled over the jagged cliffs of Valmora, turning the obsidian spires of the castle into black silhouettes against a sky of gold and rose. The forest, which had felt so alive and dangerous the night before, was now still and calm, as if the shadows themselves had retreated to wait for another day. Yet Eldra knew better. Darkness never truly disappeared. It only lingered, waiting for the moment to return. She walked beside Kaelin, their fingers intertwined, each step measured and deliberate. The events of the previous night were heavy on her mind. The temple, the shadows, the surge of power she had felt within herself. She had learned something vital. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. And trust, she realized, was not blind. It was earned and shared, a bond that could weather even the most ancient threats. Kaelin's presence beside her was steadying, and for the first time since the ceremony, she felt the weight of her emotions in full clarity. She admired his strength, yes, but more than that, she respected the care he had shown, the patience with which he had guided her, and the quiet certainty of his loyalty. Eldra, Kaelin said softly, his eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting danger to rise with the sun. Last night was only the first test. Leora warned us, this force we faced is patient. It will return stronger and we must be ready. Eldra nodded, her chest tight with determination. Then we prepare. I am ready to face whatever comes, Kaelin, with you. He squeezed her hand, a silent acknowledgement of their shared resolve. Together, they entered the castle, the familiar stone halls now seeming both comforting and strange after the night's chaos. Nobles moved quietly, whispering among themselves, some casting wary glances at the pair who had faced the shadows. Kaelin's presence demanded respect, but Eldra noticed the way some of the younger nobles watched her as well, curiosity, admiration, and perhaps even awe. They reached the throne room where Eldra's father awaited. The king's expression was unreadable, his eyes heavy with concern and pride. "You both have returned," he said finally. "I have heard whispers of what transpired in the forest. Tell me, what happened?" Kaelin bowed his head slightly, then gestured for Eldra to speak. "Father," she began, her voice steady despite the memories still fresh in her mind. "The shadows were awakened by an ancient force. We faced it at the temple beyond the forest. Together with Leora's guidance, we managed to push it back. But it is not gone, it waits." Her father's brow furrowed. "And this power you discovered, Eldra, is it dangerous?" Eldra shook her head. "It is part of me. It is part of the bond I share with Kaelin. It can be used for protection, not destruction, but it must be respected." The king studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "You have grown, Eldra, and Kaelin, you have shown both courage and wisdom. The kingdom is fortunate to have you both." Kaelin lowered his head in respect. "We will protect it, father, no matter what comes." As they left the throne room, Eldra felt a subtle shift within her. Something had changed overnight, not just in the kingdom, but within herself. She felt stronger, more certain, and more deeply connected to Kaelin than ever before. Their bond, tested by fear and strengthened by trust, had become a force in itself. Later that evening, in the quiet of the castle gardens, Eldra and Kaelin walked side by side beneath the moonlight. The air was cool, the scent of night-blooming flowers delicate and calming. It was a rare moment of peace, one they both knew was precious. "You were incredible last night," Kaelin said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I have never seen such courage. You faced fear head-on, Eldra, and you embraced the power within you." Eldra looked at him, feeling warmth rise in her chest. "I could not have done it without you," she said softly. "You were with me every step, guiding me, trusting me, helping me see what I was capable of." Kaelin reached for her hand, lifting it to his lips briefly. "We are stronger together," he said. "Always. This bond, it is more than destiny. It is choice, trust, and understanding, and it will endure no matter what comes." Eldra's heart swelled. She had longed for this kind of connection, one that went beyond obligation or duty. And now she understood that the strength of their bond was the key to facing any darkness, any challenge, any shadow that might rise again. The night air was calm, but Eldra's senses remained alert. She had learned the truth of the world. The kingdom, the forests, even the shadows themselves were alive with ancient power. But for the first time she did not feel powerless. She felt prepared, and she felt confident that together she and Kaelin could face anything. Suddenly a faint light flickered among the trees at the edge of the garden. Eldra froze, recognizing the glow of Leora's magic. The sorceress approached, her expression calm yet serious. "You have done well," Leora said, her eyes flicking between Eldra and Kaelin. "But the threat is not gone. You have forced it to retreat, yes, but its patience is infinite. The bond you share, the power you wield, these are the keys to its defeat should it rise again." Eldra nodded. "I understand. We will be ready." Leora inclined her head, then stepped back into the shadows. "Remember this. Redemption is not just for the fallen. Sometimes it is for those who survive, who face fear, and who rise stronger. Guard your hearts and guard each other. That is how the darkness will be kept at bay." As Leora's figure disappeared into the night, Eldra felt the weight of her words settle over her. Redemption, strength, courage. She understood now that it was not just about surviving the shadows. It was about growing, changing, and becoming the kind of person who could face them without faltering. Kaelin placed a hand over hers, grounding her in the present. "Whatever comes," he said, "we will face it together. We will protect this kingdom and we will protect each other." Eldra smiled, feeling a quiet joy she had never known before. "Together," she echoed. Days passed and life in the kingdom slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. The nobles resumed their duties, the servants tended to their tasks, and the castle hummed with its usual rhythm. Yet beneath the surface, the kingdom had changed. There was an awareness now of the ancient powers that lingered beyond the forest, a respect for the bonds of destiny and the courage of those who had faced the shadows. Eldra and Kaelin spent time together, learning to understand the full extent of their bond. They trained together, practiced control of their magic, and shared quiet moments that deepened their connection. Each day, they discovered new strengths within themselves and each other, building a foundation of trust that was unshakable. One evening, on the highest balcony of the castle, they watched the sunset together. The sky was ablaze with color, reflecting the warmth and hope that had grown between them. Eldra leaned against Kaelin, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her hand. "Do you think the darkness will return?" she asked softly. Kaelin's eyes were fixed on the horizon, thoughtful. "Perhaps," he said. "But we are not the same people we were before. We have faced fear and we have faced each other's truths. Whatever comes, we will face it stronger together. That is what makes us different from those who came before us." Eldra nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate within her. "Then we are ready." Kaelin turned to her, his expression tender, filled with both love and respect. "Yes, we are ready. And Eldra, I love you, not because of duty or destiny or prophecy. I love you because you are you, brave, strong, kind, and everything I could ever hope for." Eldra's heart swelled. She had dreamed of this moment, of a love that was deep, steadfast, and unshakable. And now, standing beside Kaelin, she knew it was real. "I love you too," she whispered, "with everything I am." The first stars began to appear in the sky, twinkling like distant promises. Eldra and Kaelin stood together, hand in hand, hearts entwined. The kingdom stretched out below them, safe for now, but alive with magic, history, and destiny. And in that moment, they understood the greatest truth of all, that love, courage, and trust were stronger than any darkness, that even the oldest shadows could be faced when hearts were united. And that redemption was possible, not just for those who had fallen, but for those who dared to rise, to face fear, and to embrace the bond that connected them beyond all time. As the night fully settled, a gentle breeze carried the scent of the forest and the promise of new beginnings. Eldra and Kaelin looked at each other, silently acknowledging the journey they had shared and the future they would face together. The world was vast, and the shadows still lingered, but with their hearts united, they knew that no force, ancient, powerful, or cunning, could break them. Together, they would protect the kingdom, nurture their bond, and face whatever tides of power and destiny awaited them. And in that quiet, magical moment, under the stars and moonlight, they finally allowed themselves to hope, to dream, and to believe in a future of light and love. The night had tested them, the shadows had challenged them, and the bond of destiny had been forged in fire and courage. But the dawn had come, and with it, a promise that no darkness could ever conquer a love that was true, unyielding, and eternal. And so, hand in hand, they stepped into the new day, ready, unbroken, and together.